Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Finding housing that is affordable remains a problem for many Native Americans, and the lack of affordable housing contributes to other problems, including lack of health care and vulnerability to crime. But in recent months, several new affordable housing projects have opened or are being built. The projects are specifically geared toward Native American tenants who are otherwise struggling to find and keep a roof over their heads. We'll hear about some selected projects and the overall trend to build more Native housing right after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. The United States Supreme Court has once again declined to take up challenges to a federal law that protects subsistence hunting and fishing in Alaska. The court rejected the state of Alaska's petition to review a federal lawsuit against the state over salmon management on the Kuskokwim River in southwest Alaska. KMBA's Rhonda McBride has more.
The state had argued the federal government was misinterpreting a law Congress passed to protect a rural priority for subsistence. Last year, after the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals sided with federal fishery managers, the state asked the Supreme Court to take up the case. But in a court docket on Monday, the Supreme Court denied the state's petition. The Alaska Federation of Natives hailed the decision. Its president, Ben Malott, says decades of hard-won protections under the landmark Katie John lawsuits were also on the line.
I feel relieved that we don't have to spend our limited resources and efforts fighting for what we know is right. Hopefully, our final time protecting what Katie John fought for.
John was an Ahtna Athabascan elder who fought for the right to fish on rivers that flow through federal lands. This is the third time the Supreme Court has decided to let Katie John litigation stand untouched. Alaska's Fish and Game Commissioner Doug Vincent Lang said in a statement that the state will respect the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court to not address legal issues regarding fish and game management authorities over navigable waters belonging to the state of Alaska. In Anchorage, I'm Rhonda McBride.
Mary Peltola, a Yupik Democrat and the first Alaska Native person elected to Congress, announced Monday that she's running for U.S. Senate, taking on Republican incumbent Dan Sullivan. Alaska Public Media Washington correspondent Liz Ruskin reports.
Peltola served one partial and one full term in the U.S. House, then narrowly lost her seat in 2024. Her initial campaign videos portrayed her salmon-centered family life on the Kuskokwim River. She talks about the high cost of housing and groceries. She doesn't mention Sullivan by name.
The politicians representing us on Capitol Hill are more interested in appealing to D.C. partisans than to the Alaskans who elected them.
Nationally, Democrats believe that with Peltola on the ballot, Alaska presents one of their best hopes of flipping a Senate seat. Sullivan has already raised $6 million this election cycle. He has President Trump's endorsement and maintains a strong alignment with Trump. The National Republican Senatorial Committee and other groups supporting Sullivan issued a string of press releases. They link her to Joe Biden and other national figures on the left. Some Republican messages hit at her high rate of missed House votes. Peltola tried to head off that last point in her launch video, saying D.C. people were shocked that she went home in July to put up fish for her family. But she says Alaskans understand. For U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski, Peltola's candidacy presents a dilemma. They're both moderates, and Murkowski endorsed Peltola in the past, despite their party differences. Thursday, Murkowski said she'd made a decision.
We want to figure out how we're going to keep in the majority, and Dan delivers that.
So you would endorse Dan?
You know, yes, I guess I'm saying that I am endorsing my Republican partner.
I'm Liz Ruskin.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Tribal Development Partners, helping tribes build toward their goals through 105L leasing and essential facility development, empowering sovereignty, strengthening community. More at tribaldevpartners.com, proud supporters of this show.
Support from Clarkson Potter, publisher of Turtle Island, Foods and Traditions of the Indigenous Peoples of North America by Native American chef Sean Sherman. With ancestral and modern recipes, this cookbook showcases diverse foodways of the continent's regions.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Organizers in Chicago just broke ground on a 45-unit affordable housing project specifically for Native Americans that is scheduled to open this year. The city of Vancouver, Washington is building a mixed-use development with 95 units, a project that city leaders say will transform that city's waterfront. And an Oakland urban health nonprofit is nearly ready to welcome new tenants into a new 76-unit affordable housing development. The surge in housing projects is specifically geared toward urban Native Americans to offset barriers that disproportionately affect their ability to secure and keep a home. Led by Native groups, these projects have culture and community at the forefront. In this hour, we'll hear about some of these housing projects. And as always, listeners, you can join us. Are you living in urban housing specifically for Native Americans? Or maybe there are groups or organizations in your city working on creating more affordable housing opportunities. Tell us about it by calling 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Joining us now from Chicago, Illinois, is Shelley Tuzzarelli. She is the Executive Director of Visionary Ventures NFP Corporation and the Vice President of the Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative. She is from the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. Shelley, hello, and welcome to Native America Calling.
Hello, Sean, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
In Portland, Oregon, we're joined by Sky Waters. He is the Community Development Director at the Native American Youth and Family Center, also known as NAYA. He is Osage. Sky, good morning, and welcome to Native America Calling.
Morning, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Joining us from Oakland, California, is Anthony Guzman. He is the Chief Cultural Officer for the Native American Health Center in Oakland, California, and he is Northern Ute. Good morning to you as well, Anthony, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
And our fourth guest joins us from Hardin, Montana, Brian Singer. He is the Entrepreneur Development Specialist for State of Montana Indian Economic Development, Indian Country Economic Development, and he's also a member of the board of the Mountain Shadow Association, and he is Crow. Brian, good morning. Welcome to Native America Calling.
Good morning, Sean. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have all of you on the show today. Really excited about this conversation. And Shelley, I want to begin with you because your organization just broke ground on a new development. It's titled Jigsy Beak. How is construction coming along?
We've just topped off, and we're actually planning a topping off celebration. So it's been going very well, except for, we did have a few delays because of the Chicago weather.
Sounds like it. Yeah, I know it can get pretty windy and cold this time of year. Well, tell us more about how you and the other partners on this project, you assessed these needs specifically to house Native Americans, and also just some of the challenges with the high cost of housing there in Chicago.
Well, one of the main things is that we were promised housing over 50 years ago here in Chicago. As we all know, it was during the Indian Relocation Act, and Chicago was one of the relocation cities. And of course, nothing happened. We had a few protests, and again, we were promised housing. So I worked with Illinois Housing Development Authority for over 20 years, and that's the agency that finances affordable housing for the entire state. And unfortunately, at the time, we had no federal recognized tribes in Illinois, so we had no support to do housing for our Native community here in Illinois. We service about 175 different tribal nations, and we are a large community, but again, having a voice and being able to provide that housing has been difficult. So when I left over 10 years ago, my mission was to start the nonprofit and to work towards building this housing development. It's taken us over 5 years. We using the low-income housing tax credits through the city of Chicago and a few other financing resources. So it has been a challenge. Again, it shouldn't take 5 years to get a project up and running, but when you're working in a large city like Chicago, development, there are a lot of delays in trying to get things going, but we've had a lot of support, and we're very happy to be where we are now with these 45 units and 100% affordable. We are doing studios all the way up to 3 bedrooms in order to have that intergenerational connection, and we're just very happy that we are under construction and looking to be completed by the fall.
So exciting is that it is the first affordable housing project specifically for Native residents in Chicago. Tell us more about how this fits in with efforts citywide to serve low and moderate income people.
Again, we're in a housing crisis throughout the nation, and we've been saying this for years. And now we have a lot of politicians, finally getting on board. So, but in Indian country, we've always had housing. It was always been a crisis. So being able to provide these opportunities here in Chicago is so important. And one of the main reasons that we chose this site is because it is close to the American Indian Center, it's close to the American Indian Health Services, it's close to St. Kateri Center that provides some of our youth and elder programming. We're close to Horner Park, which is a large park in Chicago, and it's also close to the Chicago River. As we all know, water is life, and that it just has a great meaning to our community.
Where is the funding coming from, Shelley?
It is through the low-income housing tax credit program, and that program is one of the largest sources of funds that's used to create and preserve affordable housing throughout the nation. So we're very lucky to be able to have received those credits.
I know one of the challenges with urban Native housing is that sometimes the funding, it can compete with interest for those people that need housing on reservations. Is your organization working to address that?
None of the funds that we're using took away from any funds on reservations. This is low-income housing tax credits that's available to everyone. And that was one of the things we didn't want to do, was take funding from any of the tribal nations that desperately need those fundings. But again, because we're using the low-income housing tax credit, it is considered integrated housing. So it is open to everyone, but we have strategically reaching out in our tenant selection plan and working with our property management to reach out to the most underserved community here in Chicago, which is our Native community.
All sounds really, really exciting. What's the outlook for future projects that would add to the number of units geared specifically toward Native residents?
Well, we are working on another project, 80 units in the Rogers Park area, which is the furthest north neighborhood of Chicago. It's not going to be Native-centric, but we have over 200 people on our interested persons list. So we will try to address some of those needs of our community members to go into these 80 units if they are not able to get into our 45 units, which is very little, but it's a start. And one of the things we also did was work closely with our architect to make sure we brought in all of the cultural elements as possible. And we also put together the Chicago Native American Community Collaborative neighborhood council in order to help bring in that support from the neighborhood.
Tell us more about some of these cultural details. And then again, the name of the development, Jigzibeek, what does that mean?
We worked with a linguist from the Potawatomi, and it means by the river's edge. and it's because we're in such close proximity to the Chicago River. And on the rendering of the project, you can see we have blue brick that's flowing up through the middle of the building, and it branches off into the north and the south branch of the river. So it's a contemporary view of the flow of the Chicago River.
Yeah,
and
I'm looking.
Also, planning a green roof on the top and an artist room, and we're going to have native art throughout the building. So we're just very happy with everything that's come together.
I'm on your website now, and I'm looking at an artistic rendering of what the finished building will look like. Yeah, it's absolutely exquisite. For some of our listeners who maybe they're not Native people, they don't really understand Native communities. Can you talk a little bit, Shelley, about the benefits for Native tenants to live in a space with other Native people like them?
Oh, absolutely. One of the main things that we did was there's a lot of affordable housing that don't have balconies, but as we all know, a lot of buildings now are smoke-free. So we fought and was able to get balconies for all of our units so that our residents can still burn their sage whenever they need to and want to, because that's just something that's part of all of our cultural heritage. And so that's one big thing. And just, again, being able to have neighbors that look like you and have some of the same cultural aspects is going to just be, and also some of the programming that we're going to be bringing in from the health center, the American Indian Center, bringing programs over. We've got a huge community space on the 7th floor. And again, like I said, we have an artist room so that we know a lot of our community members do regalia work, do bead work. This way that it's not spread all over their kitchen table. They have a space to come up and then meet some of their neighbors and things like that. And the green roof, having that outdoor space in order to, and we're going to have some rooftop garden beds for some of the elders to be able to do some gardening on the roof. So the being outside is going to be very, very beneficial for all of our tenants.
Shelley Tuzzarelli, Executive Director of Visionary Ventures NFP Corporation. She's speaking with us from Chicago, Illinois, and she's kicking off our conversation today here on Native America Calling. It is all about housing, affordable housing for Native folks living in urban areas. If this is a topic that you are familiar with, give us a call. We'd like to hear from you. 1-800-996-2848. A relatively quiet change in tax law is being called a historic win for tribes. The decision comes after a decade of work by tribal leaders behind the scenes. It gives individual tribes more of a say in what is and isn't subject to federal taxes when it comes to issues like housing, health, education, and cultural activities. We'll hear why it's important and how much more money it puts in tribes and tribal members' hands on the next Native America Calling.
Repatriation is the return of ancestors and stolen culture. The Association on American Indian Affairs is hosting the 11th annual Repatriation Conference, Feeding the Fire, Advancing the Movement, in February 2026. This fully virtual conference will offer small group interactive workshops, strategies, networking, and more to advance domestic and international repatriation. More at Indian-Affairs.org. The association supports this show.
Thanks for tuning in to Native America Calling today. We're talking about affordable housing in urban Native communities. Is there a need for Native-specific affordable housing in the city where you live? Give us a call. Let us know. Our number is 1-800-996-2848. That's also 1-800-99-NATIVE. And later in the hour, we'll also hear about a construction project in Lodgegrass, Montana, geared toward keeping families together. Let's head west now to Portland, Oregon, where we have Sky Waters on the line. He is the Community Development Director at the Native American Youth and Family Center. And Sky, NAYA is involved with a couple of affordable housing projects in the Portland area. What's driving these partnerships?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Really, the need for housing is so high in the Portland metro area that the only way that we are able to really meet that need and that demand is through partnerships. So our project that we are working on in downtown Vancouver, Washington, it's a 95-unit affordable housing development. We're partnering with the Colas Development Group and the Cowlitz Tribe to see that project come to fruition. And it's something that our community has really been asking for a number of years, not only to provide housing and support there, but also to expand our services into that Southwest Washington, Vancouver area so that we can actually meet the need not only in housing, but in those services also.
These 95 units you describe in Vancouver sounds really timely. Does NAIA often work with local tribes on projects like this?
Yes, we do, and it is a part of how we approach these developments in really ensuring that they're approached in a very native way and honoring the original homelands of the people in this region. NAIA is a urban native organization, so we don't focus on one particular tribe. We serve over 380 different tribes, but it's really important for us to honor and hold that culture that is already here. So with our Vancouver, Washington project, we have worked with the Cowlitz Tribe to make sure that the building, has that rich history and culture and is telling that story. And we've really started that off even at the beginning of the project. Some cultural, spiritual leaders for Cowlitz led us in a spirit walk of the entire space, actually before we did construction or broke ground, just so that we could really start off the entire construction process in a good way.
Sky, earlier you mentioned native resource centers in addition to housing. Why is it important to have those two elements in close proximity?
It's extremely important to, housing is, I think you've highlighted it, number one, to stabilize folks, but there's also that belonging piece, that providing services so that folks are not just being housed, but they can also thrive, not only in their housing situation, but in their community, in their neighborhood. So we really take a broader approach to housing and try to provide those wraparound services to the communities and to the residents of the buildings that we are creating.
And Sky, where do you get your data? I'm interested in knowing the numbers that drive projects like this, specifically for Native Americans in urban areas in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, we do lean on our partners a lot. So that was with the Vancouver project. We worked with Cowlitz to really get a sense of where their tribal members were living, what the demographics were, what the income was for those folks, and really so we could create this profile of who we were trying to serve with that particular project. And we do that for each of our projects where we are partnering with a tribal partner and also rely on a lot of other data sources, state and city data sources where it makes sense and will also help us in creating and achieving the right tenant mix on a property.
Now, you build a big development like this, There's a lot of fanfare. There's a lot of celebration. Everybody's anticipating what this will do for the community. But then once it's there, I imagine there are operations and maintenance challenges that need to be considered once the building is completed. Are those all built into the original budget?
Yes, they are. It is when we complete a project, we really say that once we're done with it, like the hard part is starting, right? The operations and how we're maintaining the buildings is really key in supporting residents and ensuring that they are having a satisfactory time in each of our properties. And we really take it very serious, and there are some challenges in doing that with some of the realities that affordable housing properties are facing, one of which is the decrease in rental assistance and rental subsidies for folks. So it's getting harder and harder for individuals to actually make and pay their rent each month. And we are starting to see our operating costs increase as well. So it makes the operating environment for some of these affordable housing projects really challenging.
So how do you prepare for that then? If there is a decrease in rental assistance, and because I imagine, tenants move in and it could become at some point really challenging for them to continue to afford to live in these units. What's the plan?
Strong relationships with our partners. So, if we need to get support from state housing, our city partners, the county. So really building on those relationships there, and then also with the individual tenant, just making sure that we are having really upfront and constant communication with them throughout the process when they are getting in trouble, and then we doing our best to connect them to other resources. If we don't have some, what are those pathways, and trying to be really creative in supporting residents.
Sky, what excites you most about this development, and what do you hope that it does for the community as a whole?
Very excited for the downtown Vancouver project. There is just a lack of resources for our Native community up there, and it's something that folks have been wanting us to expand into. So really excited that this is going to be that keystone project, and we're going to be able to create this hub for the Native community where folks can gather, where they can be in space and feel that belonging there, and then we can start providing more robust services. So really looking at this as that first step to building out our wraparound services up in Vancouver.
95 units, Vancouver, Washington. Give us a little more detail in terms of the types of units, and I imagine family-friendly spaces for children to play, maybe daycare facilities in close proximity. How's it all going to come together?
Yeah, so it's a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments, and we're really targeting individuals and families that are earning between 50% and 60% of the area median income. And what drew us to this opportunity was the location. So it is right next door to City Hall, right next to a prominent park. The farmers market happens right in that area. So it's a wonderful location, downtown Vancouver, connected to the city and access to a ton of services there. So that was really what excited us about this project as well.
Can you give us a visual in terms of what it's actually going to look like?
Yeah, so this is actually one of my favorite components through the design process, but we held a number of design meetings with Cowlets and really getting their input on what it should visually look like. And through that process, we started seeing just the prominence of the basket weaving and the basket weaving pattern in the Cowlitz culture. So our architects, actually the exterior will have that exterior face to look like a interlocking basket pattern on the outside of the building. So really excited about that design element and how that came through with the architecture and the exterior of the building, and just really wanting it to look and feel like a Cowlitz building, and really sharing that culture and history.
And what about for the folks who will ultimately live here? Were they included in some of these planning discussions? And what are they telling you? What are they most excited about?
Yeah, so we are in constant communication with our community about the needs and what folks are hoping to see in these areas. We always prioritize having that community spaces so that folks can gather. So it's a priority for any of our developments, and will be community space and gathering areas for folks in our Vancouver, Washington project, really having some outdoor space and area, although we're kind of limited in that with this particular project, also making sure that is a priority within our developments, and then making sure that we have some services for folks. So we're also having building our services in Vancouver, Washington. So we're providing financial wellness and home buying education. So hoping to bring those services as well to folks. And, we're really hearing from the community about their needs around housing and those financial constraints. So really trying to bring those services to the building as well as the community at large there in Vancouver.
All right. Thank you so much, Sky. 1-800-996-2848. We have the phone lines open for anyone who would like to join this discussion. We're talking about housing opportunities for urban Native people in various cities across the United States. And let's go now to Oakland, California, where we have Anthony Guzman, who is the Chief Cultural Officer for the Native American Health Center in Oakland, California. Anthony, tell us about the housing project. It's called Flicker. That's a catchy name. I like it.
Oh man, the Flicker building is something else. We're going to say this building doesn't just bling, it blows. It's a beautiful, beautiful design. And I just wanted to also add, before I jumped into the project, it's so inspiring and motivating to hear Indigenous excellence on this call, and recognizing that housing is a part of our holistic way of life as Indigenous people. Now, the Flicker, so the Flicker building has a very powerful representation of that northern flicker bird on the design of the building. And then in the front of that building design, we have what they call a flicker band, or as our Pomo relatives call it, a cochilla. And that is a traditional regalia that the men wear when they dance in their ceremonies. And, we definitely worked with the surrounding nations, including the Ohlone people whose ancestral homelands that we are on. We wanted to make sure that California Native Indigenous presence was recognized and seen. You can see this building from the Bay Area BART. It's gorgeous. And so that cochilla is really a ceremonial regalia that helps us understand the spiritual nature of the work that we do, and to have a very positive vision of the future. And like we've talked about here on the call with other of our relatives, we're looking at 76 affordable housing cultural center on the bottom, 20 new dental operatories. And one of the things that around the Bay Area that we are struggling with is, people accessing dental care. So many of our community partners, other F2HCs here, are anywhere from 6 to 9 months out. And so for us to be able to get 20 new operatories into our system of care, we'll make sure that the relatives coming through our doors, get those smiles nice and ready to get out into the world and share that blessing. So, the Flicker building is a very beautiful building. And so right now I am at our oldest location, 3124 on International Boulevard, and I'm looking out my window right now and I can see that building. We are ready to get it grand opening in March. So this thing is up, it's gorgeous, and as many of the relatives on the call know, it's getting the foundation of the building takes the longest part. But once that foundation's down, the time flies and it just goes up, and it's amazing to watch that process.
I'm looking at photos online right now. Yeah, this building, it definitely pops. We have to take another short break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk more with Anthony Guzman about the Flicker development. And we're also going to talk with Brian Singer with State of Montana Indian Country Economic Development. So stay with us. And for anyone who would like to join this show right now, what does it mean to you? Good, safe, affordable housing in an urban area for Native people. Let us know. 1-800-996-2848.
Skugtash. For more than 40 years, Ramona Farms has revived ancient traditional foods, tepary beans, pinoli, polentas, and more, all from store.ramonafarms.com. Ramona Farms supports this show. Tom Nye.
Kaufman & Associates has over 35 years of experience serving Indian country, supporting growth, transformation, and sustainability of tribal programs. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce, and we're talking about affordable housing today. You can join the conversation. Just call 1-800-996-2848. That number is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. We have Anthony Guzman on the line in Oakland, California. He is with the Native American Health Center. And Anthony, is it unique for a Native health organization to also focus on housing like what we're talking about today?
I'm going to say I don't think so. I think that this is not just a trend, but it's something that Native health organizations have always known, and that when we talk about caring for our relatives, it's not just with the dental appointment, it's not just with the prevention group, it's not just with an individual counseling session, it's with the whole person care. And in order to treat the individual, to make sure that they get the most positive health outcome, a feeling of safety is absolutely necessary. If the relatives are sleeping in cars, overcrowded homes, getting pushed out due to high incomes in the city areas and getting displaced, that feeling of safety really disappears pretty quickly. So looking at that whole person care, to have the feeling of safety, to have your own place where you could go and cook your meals and have a place to live is something that I believe is starting to become a reality for many of our urban relatives. And this, I think, is just a way of healthcare in the future. And the thing that's really beautiful about that is that the larger healthcare industry cannot ignore that reality. It's like, do you really want to see people get healthy and get well? Part of that formula is definitely going to be housing, and we've been seeing that now throughout the country.
The other cities we're talking about today, the high cost of housing in Oakland, it's well known. What are some other ways that the city and people such as you are looking to tackle affordable housing in a comprehensive way?
I had touching back a little bit on getting towards making sure that people tackle that housing. It's definitely leaning into the partnerships, the stakeholders of the folks that are building the relationships with our county, our state representatives, our elected officials, and also really leaning into that holistic model of care and to demonstrate through data that by providing housing is creating a healthier community, that you start to see people become successful, and by demonstrating that through data, and that really allows us to say this isn't just a concept, this is an actual reality. And our partners and our stakeholders really value that demonstration, and then what that does for other communities to say, yes, this is the way to care for community, to care for the people that are most vulnerable in society.
Anthony, you're quoted as saying that 76 spaces available in Flickr, more than 1,470 applicants. So that sounds to me like a lot of folks that are ultimately going to be turned away. Are there other options or solutions for those people?
When we think about how to support those relatives, the Bay Area has a very comprehensive housing infrastructure, and it's so challenging to navigate. The coordinated entry system here is challenging for so many relatives, and we wanted to do our part to the best of our ability. What we do have right now is we do have a grant called Bringing Families Home, and so that grant allows us to support relatives that are navigating that coordinated entry system. And we also have housing rental support and assistance for those that might be on the verge of losing housing. And that Bringing Family Home grant also helps some of our relatives if they need, a deposit or, again, other things for a move-in. These are some of the grants that we do through our community wellness department to support folks in housing. And so those are some of the ways, in addition to providing affordable housing through the Flickr project.
Anthony, thanks for coming on the show today. Really appreciate your enthusiasm for Flickr. We're paying close attention here at Native America Calling. So thank you again. And for those of us who would like to join the conversation, you can do so, 1-800-99-NATIVE. Brian Singer is our next guest. He joins us now from Hardin, Montana, and he is with the state of Montana Indian Country Economic Development and also a board member for Mountain Shadow Association. And Brian, good morning again. And we know there's a big need for housing in rural Native community. Tell us about your organization's work to help foster community growth in Lodgegrass.
All right, yeah. So I'm a board member for a Native-led nonprofit called Mountain Shadow Association. It's based on the Crow Indian Reservation in southeastern Montana. And we have a project that we're working on called Kalev Village. And Kala in the Crow language means grandmother. And we spent about 18 months reaching out to the community to develop a design process that the community needed and wanted. And people consistently told us that, the safest place growing up was their grandma's house. And so that idea of safety and accountability is what we're trying to build. So what we did was we purchased a 13-acre property within the town of Lodgegrass, Montana. So Lodgegrass is within the reservation. It's right in the heart of the reservation. And it's plagued by, meth and alcohol and a lot of the addiction issues that like a lot of reservations do face. And a lot of the children, end up being removed from, their homes because of, drugs and alcohol. And there's not really a lot of places for the kids to go. And so we wanted to fulfill that need for housing for the children. And so what Calaz Village and a 13-acre property is, we're going to build an entire campus designed to help restore those broken families. And so just this past year in 2025, we broke ground on our first building. It's about a 10,000 acre building, our 10,000 square foot building. Going to have 2 apartment complexes on the sides where we'll have foster families, and then in the middle we'll basically going to be the children's home. And when social services, they don't have anywhere to place the kids, and we'll have a safe place for them to live and be safe and healthy, and where they can grow and flourish while their parents are getting sober and getting treatment. They might travel away to get treatment, and so we want to take care of their kids while they're there, and then also provide a safe place for their parents to come to when they get out. And so the property right now, we got our first building up. We have several phases to go. We have several buildings to build. We got playground. We want to build a playground and an arbor, and even horse corrals and community gardens and sweat lodge, places for them to pray, and it's a good overall healthy environment for native children.
It really sounds like it, Brian. Just so many different types of amenities and these mixed-use spaces, I think, will just be so beneficial. Tell us more. Right now, do children get to stay in the community if they've entered into the foster care system, or are they having to leave?
Yeah, that's the problem. There's really not a lot of places for them to go unless there's a family member or someone within the community that's willing to take them. And a lot of times, a lot of these homes where they do take children in, they're overwhelmed as it is. A lot of them at their grandma's house, and a lot of these grandmothers are already, raising, 10 plus grandkids on their own. And so the system really it's overwhelming for a lot of people, just because of, drugs and alcohol. I think as Native people, we already had a system for adoption, and, it was always the village that raised the children, but, now it's really overwhelmed because of drugs and alcohol. And so a lot of the kids, they end up going to a different community or a different reservation, or, they're off the reservation, raised by a non-native family. And I know that there's that law, Indian Child Welfare Act, where they want to keep Native kids in Native homes. But, a lot of the problem is there's really not a lot of homes for the Native kids to go to. So, we wanted to provide that solution, not just so much about the law keeping the kids here, but we need a place for them to go. So that's what we're trying to build.
What about also just the larger town there of Lodgegrass, the community of Lodgegrass? What do you think it'll mean to other people living there, just seeing these new housing options, new buildings, all just coming up, new construction?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea is that we want to just get things done. We don't want to sit around and wait for, the tribe to offer a solution, or the federal government to come in and help us and build something for us. It's like sitting around and waiting isn't going to do anything. And we just wanted to put our best foot forward and just let's get it. Let's do it. Let's start fundraising. Let's create a nonprofit. Let's game plan this out and really make something happen. And I think it's really inspiring a lot of the community. And one of the things, the phases of construction is we're training people in these trades. We brought on several community members that live in Lodgegrass to work on laying the foundation, and they're learning how to do framing and siding and roofing and plumbing and electrical. There's a lot of things where they're actually developing in these trades, and we're actually training them to train others. And so we got a program worked out with the high school there in Lodgegrass, where, we could bring on some of the students that want to learn, and then it'll provide, it'll be part of a class, and they'll actually get paid to do it too. And then we also working with the tribal college, and with their trades program where, they can have their students come over and learn and build. And so I think all around, I mean, it's really motivating for a lot of people, and it's providing jobs at the same time.
Well, Brian, this reminds me, you also have plans to create a sawmill. Can you talk about that briefly?
Yeah. So, that's one unique aspect of the Calaz Village is we're also going to be providing spaces for homes for the parents, when they get out of treatment. And so altogether at the two circular housing where we're probably going to build about 20 homes. And so that way when the parents get out of treatment, they have a sober living space for them to maintain their sobriety, but also restore them with their children. And every Crow tribal member is allotted 50 trees, and those 50 trees can be harvested anywhere on the Crow reservation. And so what we want to do is build a small sawmill and a lumber yard, and we want to assist those parents in harvesting these trees that they're allotted. And so once we get those trees, we'll help them cut them down into 2x4s and 2x8s and 2x12s, and then we have several plans. Small home families. A lot of times they say tiny homes, but they're not so tiny. They're actually really beautiful. They're really nice, 2-story homes where a family can actually thrive in. And so once they get the lumber, we're going to assist them and help them build their own home, teaching them everything like the foundation and the framing and the siding, the roofing, everything we mentioned, they're going to learn how to build their own home. And so that saves a lot of the cost because we have a homeless problem as well because, housing is so expensive nowadays. Lumber is so expensive nowadays. So, so it's really like a good deal.
All right. Brian, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining the show, informing our listeners about what's going on in Lodge Grass. I want to go back now to Shelley Tutsarelli in Chicago, Illinois for closing comments here. And Shelley, we're hearing about some really exciting projects here today. Is this a trend, more urban native focused housing going forward? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. We've been talking about it for years, but now we're actually making it happen. And once you make it happen, that means that next project can come on, that next project can come on. And again, like Brian had mentioned, we have to do our own fundraising. We have to work with our federal, state, and local agencies to get those funding we can't wait around. We have to just go in there and do it. And one of the other options of our project is the commercial space, and we are working with a nonprofit for workforce development. California Indian Manpower Consortium is going to be bringing those services into our residents. So we're very happy about that also.
That is all the time we have for our conversation today. I'd like to say thank you to all of our guests, Shelley Tutsarelli, Sky Waters, Anthony Guzman, and Brian Singer. Please join us again tomorrow for a conversation about a historic change in how some tribal benefits and revenues from some tribally owned businesses are managed with regard to federal taxes. Hope you'll tune in. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Sean Spruce.
Support by the Gathering of Nations Powwow. The last dance is this April 24th and 25th at Expo, New Mexico. See the outgoing of current Miss Indian World, Dania Wawasuk, Saturday, April 25th. Tickets at gatheringofnations.com and at the gates.
Support for law and justice-related programming provided by Hobbs, Strauss, Dean & Walker, LLP, a national law firm dedicated to promoting and defending tribal rights for over 40 years. More information available at hobbsstrauss.com.
Who protects Indian country? Amerind does. As the only 100% tribally owned insurance carrier, Amerind helps strengthen tribal communities by providing reliable insurance coverage and keeping dollars in Indian country. From property and liability to commercial auto and tribal workers' compensation, Amerind is here to protect what matters. Celebrating 40 years of serving Indian country. Learn more at Amerind.com. That's AMERIND.com.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.